Go ahead, Olivia, tell them what you told him last night. The words left my mouth before anyone could take another sip of champagne, and just like that, the room went still. Not quiet, the kind of still where every heartbeat feels too loud. Her smile didn't fade right away. That was the first thing I noticed. Olivia always had control of a room, of people, of narratives. But control only works when no one challenges it. 2 weeks earlier, I wouldn't have said a word. 2 weeks earlier, I still believed in the version of my life that looked perfect from the outside. My name is Ethan Walker. 39. Project manager for a mid-sized construction firm just outside Denver. 45 minutes on I-25 every morning, black coffee in a travel mug, spreadsheets and site inspections, the kind of routine that doesn't make headlines but keeps the lights on. Our house sat in a quiet neighborhood with trimmed lawns and matching mailboxes, the kind of place where people wave but don't ask questions. Olivia fit that world perfectly. She moved through it like she belonged to something bigger, sharp, polished, always a step ahead. People admired her. I did too. For a long time, I thought that meant we were strong. Looking back, I realize admiration isn't the same thing as trust. The shift didn't happen all at once. It never does. It starts small. A phone turned face down a little too quickly. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Conversations that sound complete but leave something important unsaid. At first, I told myself it was stress. Everyone has seasons like that. You push through, you don't overreact, you don't turn small cracks into something bigger than they are. That's what I believed. That's what I held on to. But belief has a way of blinding you when the truth doesn't match the story you want to keep. The first time something felt off, it was a Tuesday night. Nothing dramatic. No shouting, no obvious sign. Just a quiet house, the hum of the refrigerator, and Olivia laughing softly into her phone in the next room. Not the kind of laugh she used with me. This one was lighter, almost younger. I remember standing in the hallway, not moving, not breathing, listening to a version of her I hadn't heard in a long time. When she walked out and saw me, the laugh disappeared like it had never existed. "Work," she said too quickly. I nodded like I always did. I didn't ask questions. That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was the habit that kept everything else from falling apart too soon. Days passed. Then more signs. Late meetings that didn't match her calendar. Messages she wouldn't open in front of me. Little comments that cut deeper than they should have, like I was slowly being reduced to a background character in my own marriage. It wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was controlled. Calculated. Toxic in a way that doesn't leave visible damage, but you feel it all the same. And the worst part? I kept telling myself I was overthinking. That nothing real had happened yet. That there was still something left to save. I didn't know then that the truth was already there, sitting just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to show itself. And when it did, it wouldn't ask for permission. I started paying attention after that night, not in a paranoid way, not pacing the house or checking every shadow, but in a quiet, deliberate way that felt almost surgical. I watched patterns. People always reveal themselves through patterns. Olivia used to come home around 6:30, heels clicking across hardwood, keys dropped in the same ceramic bowl by the door. Now it was 7, sometimes closer to 8, and the sound of her arrival felt different, lighter, like she was stepping into a place she no longer belonged. Dinner conversations changed too. They became shorter, cleaner, stripped of anything real. I would ask about her day, and she would answer with just enough detail to close the door without letting me inside. No names, no stories, no loose ends. Just smooth, practiced responses. That was when I realized something important. This was not chaos. It was control. One Thursday morning, I noticed her calendar left open on the kitchen counter. Olivia was never careless with her schedule. It was color-coded, precise, almost obsessive. But that day, there was a gap. 2 hours in the middle of the afternoon labeled simply as client. Follow-up. No address. No name. Nothing to anchor it to reality. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at those empty words like they meant more than they showed. And maybe they did. That same afternoon, I checked something I had not checked in years. Our shared credit account. Not because I suspected anything specific, but because something in me needed confirmation, something solid. The charges were normal at first glance. Groceries, gas, a coffee shop near her office. But then I saw it. A charge from a restaurant 20 miles away from where she said she would be. Not expensive, not dramatic, just out of place enough to matter. I did not confront her. I did not even mention it. Instead, I closed the app and sat there in silence, feeling that slow shift happen inside me. The kind that does not explode, does not demand attention, but quietly redraws the line between who you were and who you are about to become. Because at that point, it was no longer a question of if something was wrong. It was a question of how deep it went. The next piece did not come from a dramatic discovery or a single moment of clarity. It came from something quieter, something almost forgettable if you were not looking closely. Saturday morning, clear sky, the kind of Colorado day that makes everything feel steady. Olivia stood in the kitchen, sunlight catching the edge of her hair, scrolling through her phone with that same distant expression I had started to recognize. I poured coffee, set a mug in front of her, and for a second, we looked like the couple everyone believed we were. Then her screen lit up again. Just a flicker. Just enough for me to see a name I did not recognize. Daniel. No last name. No context. Just a message preview that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. She turned the phone over immediately, too fast, too precise. Work, she said again, without me even asking. That was when something inside me went completely still. Not angry. Not hurt. Just clear. Because people tell the truth in patterns, and I had heard that word too many times for it to mean anything anymore. Later that afternoon, she said she had to step out for a client meeting. Same tone. Same calm delivery. I nodded, same as always. But this time, I watched the details. The way she chose her outfit more carefully than usual. The slight pause before she grabbed her keys, like she was running through something in her head. The way she did not kiss me goodbye. Small things. Always small things. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. Not recklessly. Not speeding or trying to catch her in the act like some scene out of a movie. Just steady, controlled, keeping distance. She drove exactly where I expected at first, toward the office district. Then, without hesitation, she turned off, heading west, away from anything that matched the story she had just told me. That was when the last piece of doubt disappeared. I stayed far enough back that she would not notice, watching her car move through traffic like it had done this route 100 times before. Familiar. Comfortable. Intentional. She pulled into the same restaurant I had seen on the credit statement. Clean, modern, the kind of place you go when you are not in a rush, when the meeting matters. I parked across the street, engine off, hands resting on the wheel, and just sat there for a moment. I could have walked in. I could have ended everything right there with one confrontation. But something stopped me. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the realization that I still did not know the full truth. And partial truths are dangerous. They make you react too soon. So I stayed in the car and watched as she stepped out, smoothing her jacket, scanning the parking lot for just a second before heading inside. Not nervous. Not rushed. Just prepared. That was the word that stuck with me. Prepared. Like this was not a mistake. Not an accident. Not something that slipped out of control. This was something she had built. And in that moment, I understood something I should have seen earlier. Whatever Olivia was hiding, it was not new. It had roots. It had structure. And it had been growing quietly, right in front of me, while I was still trying to believe in something that no longer existed. I did not move from that parking spot for a long time. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed control. There is a difference. Anyone can react when they feel betrayed. Very few people can stay still long enough to understand the full shape of it. I watched the entrance, watched the door open and close, watched couples walk in and out like it was just another Saturday afternoon. Ordinary. That was the word that kept repeating in my head. Whatever Olivia was doing, she had made it feel ordinary. Routine. That meant it had been happening longer than I wanted to admit. After about 40 minutes, I saw her again. She stepped out of the restaurant with him. Daniel. Taller than I expected, confident in a quiet way, the kind of man who does not look around because he does not need to. They were not careless. They did not touch, did not laugh too loudly, did not give anyone a reason to look twice. But you do not need obvious signs when you understand context. It was in the way they walked side by side, close enough to share space without crossing any line that strangers could see. It was controlled. Just like everything else. They paused near her car. He said something I could not hear, and she smiled. Not the polite smile she gave me at dinner. Not the practiced one she used in public. This one was real. That was the moment that settled everything. Not the messages. Not the calendar. Not even the lie. It was that smile. Because it did not belong to me anymore. I expected anger to hit then, something sharp and immediate, but it did not come. What came instead was something colder. Clarity. Clean and precise. I understood then that this was never going to fix itself. There was no conversation that would rewind this, no apology that would restore what had already been replaced. So I made a decision right there, hands steady on the wheel, eyes locked on a version of my life that no longer included me the way I thought it did. I was not going to confront her. Not yet. Because whatever she believed she had hidden, whatever structure she had built behind my back, it deserved to be seen completely before it came down. And when it did, it would not be messy. It would not be loud. It would be controlled. Just like she thought she had been all along. That night, I did something I had never done in my own home. I stopped trusting what I saw on the surface. Instead, I started paying attention to everything underneath it. Not obsessively, not tearing through her things or turning the house upside down, but methodically, like I approached any problem at work. You gather data first. You let patterns confirm themselves. Olivia came home just after 7, same composed expression, same smooth tone. She kissed my cheek like it was part of a routine she had memorized years ago. Long day, she said, setting her bag down, moving through the kitchen like nothing had shifted. I watched her the entire time, not with suspicion anymore, but with understanding. That was the difference. Once you understand, you stop reacting. You start observing. Over the next few days, I noticed more. The way she angled her phone slightly away even when there was no reason to. The way certain notifications never made a sound, like they had been intentionally silenced. The way she smiled at messages she did not share. Small details, but together they formed something solid. Then came the piece that changed everything. It was late, close to midnight. Olivia had fallen asleep on the couch, her phone still in her hand, screen dim but not locked. I stood there for a long moment, looking at it, knowing exactly what line I was about to cross. But some lines are already gone long before you step over them. I picked it up. The messages were not hidden behind passwords or secret apps. They were right there, in plain sight, buried under casual conversation, like they belong. Daniel again. This time with context. Plans. Times. Places. But it was not just that. It was the tone. Familiar. Comfortable. Intimate in a way that did not belong to a stranger. And then one message stood out, simple and clean. He still has no idea. I read it twice, just to make sure I was not filling in gaps that were not there. But there was no mistake. That was the moment everything locked into place. Not just what she was doing, but what she thought of me while doing it. I set the phone back exactly where it had been, same angle, same position, and stepped away without making a sound. No confrontation. No reaction. Because now I had something more valuable than anger. I had the full picture. And once you have that, you do not rush. You plan. The next morning, everything looked the same, but it did not feel the same. That is how a shift like this works. The house does not change. The routines stay intact. But something underneath it all has already moved, and you are the only one who knows it. Olivia stood by the counter, scrolling through her phone, coffee in hand, sunlight cutting across the kitchen like it always did. "You are up early," she said, casual, like nothing had changed. I nodded, poured my coffee, and sat down across from her. My voice stayed steady, measured. "Could not sleep," I said. She gave a small smile, one of those polite ones that filled space without meaning anything. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. Not as something I questioned, but as something I understood. That smile was not for me anymore. It was for the version of me she believed still existed. The one who did not see. The one who would not ask. Over the next few days, I did not change my routine. That was important. Same commute, same conversations, same quiet dinners. Because the moment you change too quickly, people notice. And Olivia was observant. She had to be. That was how she kept everything so controlled. But inside, I was already somewhere else. I started organizing what I knew. Dates. Locations. Messages. Not obsessively, not like I was trying to build a case for someone else, but like I was preparing for something precise. Something final. Every detail mattered because this was no longer about catching her. I had already done that. This was about timing. About choosing the exact moment when everything she believed was hidden would become visible. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something else. This was not just about Daniel. He was part of it, yes, but he was not the core. The core was the way she spoke about me when I was not there. The way she reduced me to someone easy to overlook. Someone predictable. That message stayed with me more than anything else. He still has no idea. Not anger. Not guilt. Just certainty. And that certainty was what I was going to break. Not with a fight. Not with a confrontation behind closed doors. But in a way that could not be denied, could not be explained away, could not be rewritten after the fact. Because once a truth is seen clearly, it does not disappear. It stays. And when the moment comes, it does not ask for permission. It simply happens. I chose the moment before I chose the method. That was the difference between reacting and deciding. Olivia mentioned the company dinner on Thursday like it was nothing, just another event, another room full of people who knew her name but not her truth. "You should come," she said casually, not looking up from her phone. "It would be good for you to meet everyone." The way she said it told me everything. Not an invitation. A performance. She expected me to stand there, smile, shake hands, play the roles she had already written for me. I nodded. "Sure," I said, same tone, same calm. She smiled, satisfied, like everything was still under control. That was when I knew. That was the place. Public enough to matter. Structured enough to hold attention. Controlled enough that no one would expect anything real to happen. Over the next 2 days, I did not rush. I reviewed everything again, not because I needed more proof, but because I needed precision. Messages. Times. That one line that stayed in my head like a quiet echo. "He still has no idea." I made sure I understood exactly what I was about to break. Thursday evening came with that same polished energy these events always have. Soft lighting, clean tables, people speaking in measured tones about numbers and growth and things that sound important until they are not. Olivia moved through the room effortlessly, introducing me with that same practiced smile. "This is my husband, Ethan." The word husband sounded correct, but it felt empty. I shook hands, nodded, listened. I played my part exactly the way she expected. Because timing is not just about when you act. It is about letting everyone settle into the version of reality they believe is true. Daniel was there too. Standing across the room, confident, composed. Exactly as I remembered. He looked at me once, briefly, like I was just another detail that did not matter. That was fine. It made what came next even clearer. I waited until the room reached that perfect balance. Not too loud. Not too quiet. The moment when people are relaxed enough to listen, but not distracted enough to miss something important. And then I stood up. Not suddenly. Not aggressively. Just enough to shift the air in the room. Olivia noticed first. Of course she did. She always did. Ethan? She said, soft, questioning. I looked at her, steady, calm, the same way I had been through all of this. And in that second, I knew something she did not. This was the last moment she still believed she was in control. I did not raise my voice. I did not rush the moment. I just looked at her and said, clear enough for the table to hear. You should tell them what you said Tuesday night, about how I would never find out. The words landed softly, but the effect was immediate. Conversations paused. Glasses stopped midair. Olivia's expression held for a second too long, that polished smile frozen in place as her eyes searched mine for something familiar, something predictable. She did not find it. Ethan, what are you talking about? She said, light, controlled, already trying to steer the room back into something safe. I nodded once, like I expected that response. Or I can, I replied, reaching into my jacket, not for drama, not for show, just for clarity. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, screen already open. The messages. The meetings. The part where you said I had no idea. The silence shifted. It became heavier, sharper, impossible to ignore. Someone at the table leaned back slightly. Another looked down, suddenly interested in nothing at all. Daniel did not move at first. Then he did something small, almost unnoticeable. He stepped back half a step. That told me everything I needed to know. Olivia's composure cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the smallest way that mattered most. Her shoulders tightened. Her breath changed. This is not the place, she said, quieter now, less certain. I shook my head. You are right, I said. Calmly. But you chose the place when you decided I would never know. I did not scroll. I did not need to. The truth was already there, sitting in the air between us, seen clearly by everyone who mattered. No shouting. No scene. Just reality, laid out in a way that could not be reshaped. And for the first time since I had walked into that room, Olivia did not have control of what people believed. No one spoke right away. That was the part people never talk about. Not the reveal, not the words, but the silence that follows when the truth settles in and no one knows where to look. Olivia stood there still, like she was waiting for something to reset, for the room to go back to the version she understood. But it did not. That version was gone. Daniel was the first to move. Not toward her, not toward me. Just away. Subtle, careful, like distance alone could separate him from what had just been exposed. Olivia noticed. Of course she did. Her eyes flicked to him for a fraction of a second, and in that moment something else broke. Not the relationship. The illusion of control. She turned back to me, voice lower now, stripped of the confidence she had worn all night. Ethan, we can talk about this at home. I held her gaze steady, unchanged. We could have, I said. Before you decided I did not deserve the truth. There was no anger in my voice. That was the part that made it land. Anger can be dismissed. Calm cannot. Around us, people shifted, some stepping back, others pretending to check their phones, but no one leaving. Because moments like this do not happen often, and when they do, they stay. Olivia opened her mouth like she was going to say something else, something that might reshape what had already been seen. But nothing came. There was nothing left to control. I picked up my phone, slipped it back into my jacket, and stepped away from the table without waiting for a response. No dramatic exit. No final scene. Just a decision, carried out cleanly. As I walked past the glass doors and into the cool night air, I felt something I had not felt in weeks. Not relief. Not victory. Something quieter. finality. Behind me, the room would keep talking. Stories would form. Versions would spread. But none of that mattered anymore. Because the only version that counted was the one I had already seen. And once you see something clearly, you do not go back to pretending it was not there. She thought the secret made her safe. In the end, it was the one thing that made everything fall apart.